Afternoon, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, we do have the visit from Eddie Howe, Sir Eddie Howe, God, the chosen one, whatever you want to call him. Before we do welcome in our special guest, though, for this one, we do have a double header effectively. So we've got Paul from John Sinclair TV coming on. But we also have the thoughts of another leading Newcastle United blogger. It's Olly Hawkins from NUFC blog.co.uk. And here's what Olly said ahead of this game.
Hiya guys, it's Olly here from NUFC blog. So just some thoughts from a Newcastle perspective ahead of Saturday's game. I mean, first off, it's been an incredible few years for Newcastle. I mean, when Eddie Howe first came in, pretty much 2 years to the day, we were winless in the Premier League. We were odds on to go down. It wasn't looking good at all. Yes, we had new owners, but we really had a fight on our hands to stay up. And the way he's come in his first season saved us from relegation, and I think we ended up finishing about mid-table in the end when so many had us going down. And then from there, his first full season in the job, we've got into the top four, which was beyond any of our wildest dreams, I think. Obviously, we hoped to compete under new owners with new investment and ambition, but we didn't expect top four in the first full season under new owners, under Eddie Howe. So yeah, it's been an incredible year, 2 years. And this season, our first year back in the Champions League. And obviously, the battle for us has been trying to manage Premier League football with cup competitions and the Champions League, which obviously playing 2-3 times a week, every single week, is really tough, especially when we play at such a high intensity and like to press. And like I say, being such an all-action team. And unfortunately, that's come at a bit of a cost. I mean, our Champions League form has been up and down. We started with a good point in Milan, and obviously, I'm sure some Bournemouth fans will have seen us battering PSG 4-1. But since then, we've had back-to-back defeats to Borussia Dortmund, and that's left us with a bit of a mountain to climb in that Group F in the Champions League. So our most recent game away to Dortmund on Tuesday night, a 2-0 defeat, and was really disappointing. And like I say, it gave us a real uphill task in the Champions League. But in the Premier League, kicked off with a 5-1 win over Aston Villa, and then we went on a rough patch. We had tough fixtures with Man City away, Liverpool at home, Brighton away, but we lost all three of those, and there was a few sort of disappointing performances. But in the 7 league games we've had since then, we've been outstanding. I mean, to just put it into context, we've had, in the last 7 Premier League games, we've won 5, we've kept 5 clean sheets, we've scored 20 goals in 7 games. Yes, 8 of those were against Sheffield United, but still. And we've only drawn twice, so yeah, 5 wins and 2 draws in the last 7 league games. Clean sheets in each of those 5 games we've won. And in the 2 draws, which were a 2-2 draw at Wolves and a 2-2 draw at West Ham, we were leading in both of those games and kind of threw it away a little bit. But in the league we're in brilliant form, but while that might sound a bit daunting, there is I suppose injuries, fatigue, suspensions are starting to catch up with us just a little bit. I mean, you've obviously probably seen the Sandro Tonali situation where our new 55 million signings now being banned until next August. So our sort of star summer signings being ruled out. Harvey Barnes, our second most expensive summer signing, he's out with a toe injury and he won't play this weekend. He probably won't play for another good few weeks. Our best centre-back, Sven Botman's out with a knee injury. Dan Burn, our first choice left-back, has got a back injury. Matt Targett, another of our left-backs, has just had surgery on his hamstring. Bruno Guimaraes, he's a star midfielder, you could argue, Brazilian international. He's been outstanding, but he picked up his 5th yellow card of the season against Arsenal last weekend where we won 1-0, which was a huge result, but obviously came at a cost there. Elliot Anderson, another midfielder who maybe Bournemouth fans aren't that familiar with, but he's come in and done a really good job. Really good young talent. He's got a back injury. He's out. Jacob Murphy, who often comes in on the right wing and rotates with Almiron, he's been ruled out with a dislocated shoulder. Alexander Isak, our most expensive ever signing, has got a groin injury and he won't be back until after the international break. And Callum Wilson, it's touch or go whether he'll be able to play because he came off at Dortmund in midweek with a tight hamstring, and obviously he'll be hoping to play against his former club this weekend, but it looks like he might not be able to play. We don't know yet. He could play, but it's a bit of a risk. So basically, yeah, we've got a lot of injuries. A lot of players either suspended, Bruno and Tonali, and then a lot of other players injured. So you can imagine last Saturday we put in a huge effort to beat Arsenal 1-0, and as a result of that, in Dortmund, we were a little bit flat. We gave it our best and we had a few chances, but we didn't quite reach sort of our best game. So I think what I'd say is, while we're in brilliant form in the league, we're doing really well in the cup. We've beaten Man City in the first round. We've then beaten Man United away 3-0 last week. So while we are in good form generally, I think injuries, fatigue, and the hectic schedule is starting to catch up with us a little bit. But one thing I've noticed about Eddie Howe's team is we seem to have such good togetherness and team spirit and organisation that we seem to always find a way. And there's been so many players who've come into the team and stepped up and done superbly. I mean, for example, Jamal Lascelles back up to the likes of Shaw and Botman. He's had to come in Botman's absence, and he's been brilliant. And obviously we've got the luxury now of bringing in the likes of Tino Livramento or Lewis Hall, two really talented young players who have stepped in when the likes of Trippier or Byrne haven't been able to play. So we could say that those guys play on Saturday. Obviously, I've mentioned star midfielders like Bruno and Tonali who won't be available, but the likes of Sean Longstaff, the likes of Joe Linton, they've improved so much under Eddie Howe. And then Anthony Gordon, someone who I think raised a few eyebrows when we paid 45 million for him from Everton in January earlier this year, but he's been outstanding and he's got to be on the verge of an England call-up. I'm recording this before the England squad's been announced, but I think there's a good chance he might be selected for that. So he's flying, and he was rested in midweek, so I'd expect the likes of Gordon and Almiron to come back into the side. So yeah, Newcastle in really good form in the league. Like I say, unbeaten in our last 7 games, 5 clean sheets in that time and plenty goals, but we really are getting quite threadbare now with injuries and suspensions. So that'll play into Bournemouth's hands potentially, especially with Bruno also out. He's obviously quite a key cog in that midfield. So and yeah, from a Bournemouth perspective, I know I spoke to Craig, or should I say Craig spoke to us for our podcast that went out today, and he was telling me about Iraola trying to play out from the back and maybe play a style that the Bournemouth players are struggling to cope with. Maybe the sort of style of play would work at a club with better technical players, but it sounds like he's taking risks with that. And one thing that struck me with that is that if you are trying to play out from the back but don't really have the players to do that, Newcastle are quite a high press, high intensity team who will look to pounce on errors from the back. So that's something that sort of got my attention when Craig was talking about Iraola's style of play. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see how we get on. I think for Newcastle we need just one big effort before the international break, but I know Bournemouth, obviously you guys fighting at the other end of the table. I know in your last home game you beat Burnley, so that I guess gives you some confidence, but then on the flip side I saw the 6-1 defeat against Man City, which might have had the opposite effect. So yeah, I hope that helps, guys, and yeah, appreciate you having me on, and yeah, looking forward to the game.
So there we go. So that's what Ollie says. Let's welcome in Paul from John Sinclair TV. Good afternoon, Paul. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Looking forward to Saturday.
Excellent stuff. And likewise. And the return of God, the chosen one, Sir Eddie Howe of Paul and Bournemouth. Any other, I can't think of it. There's not enough words that I can put to Eddie Howe to say what a job he did at this football club. I'll tell you what, let's take it back a bit, though. And let's look at what he inherited from Steve Bruce, because it wasn't very good. You got the floor. Go on, Paul. You tell us what it was like.
Yeah, any fellow Newcastle fans watching this are gonna get their popcorn out. I mean, the whole saga with with Rafa, and then the whole argument with is he going to stay? Is Mike actually going to keep him? Rafa's coming out with these cryptic things of hating the club, well, not the club, hating Mike Ashley, and then Mike Ashley fighting back. And then we had this whole summer of is Rafa going to sign this contract? Is he not going to sign the contract? And then out of nowhere, they're like, Rafa's not coming back. We're done. And it's brilliant. And then you hear okay, but the club are looking at Steven Gerrard. And you're okay, he's unproven, but who knows? He could do a job. We know better now. And then we're looking at other people, all these names are mentioned, and all these people are turning us down and they don't come through. And then out of nowhere, they're we've agreed a severance package with Steve Bruce to come to Newcastle United. And every Newcastle fan was oh no, oh no. He came in, he did his usual spiel of, yeah, I'm a Newcastle fan, and it's just like, mate, you manage Sunderland. No, you're not. You're not a Newcastle fan if you manage Sunderland. I don't care what you say, you're not. And then he's like, I'm going to try my best and blah, blah, blah. And we all knew, we were all scared. Villa fans were messaging me at the time and saying, like, prepare for the worst football you've seen in your career. And it was like, wow, okay, here we go. And it was just, dire football. It was, pump it to the maximum, see what he can do for you. Let's hope he does some nice tricks and scores a good goal. Bruce got quite lucky with that because it worked to an extent. It was awful to watch. On top of Bruce ball, we had COVID ball. So you've got no fans. You've got Steve Bruce football. They're trying to charge you, what was it, $15.99 for one of the games we played. When they were doing that nonsense, and it's just like, I'm absolutely not paying for that. No way. I'm not paying $15.99 to watch us play Bruce ball and get beat. You've got Fabian Schär coming out. I don't know. There's rules on my other channel. Is there swearing on here or no swearing on here? Sorry.
Go for it, Paul.
Just because of Fabian Schär quote, we got beat by Wolves with Bruce ball and COVID ball. And Fabian Schär, if any Newcastle fans watching this, they know exactly what I'm talking about. There's an interview with him with Newcastle social media, and they're like, Fabian, how are you feeling? And he's like, that was really shit. I hate this. I hate it. I hate this. And we were like, what are we doing? We got a great player who can't get on the pitch at the time. When he does get on the pitch, he's awful. And we're just in a situation, and then the takeover's not happening. We're just stuck, and then I'll never forget this game. I was there, so we played Wolves. We've always been bad at Wolves at Molineux, and it was just an awful. I was in the away end, and we were all nervous and negative, and nothing was coming through for the takeover. We got beat 2-1, and it was just we were really. We were lucky to get a goal. It was one of those games where Wolves could have thrashed us like 8-0, and it would have been deserved because we were that bad. And I remember driving home and thinking, I love my club and I don't care what happens to my club. I'll always support Newcastle. But I was like, I don't know where I go as a fan from here. I really don't. Like, we're so bad. We're so bad football-wise. We've got players, as much as I can say, publicly, we've got players coming out to people in fan channels telling us how bad it is. We're hearing from the players themselves that are not happy. And you're thinking, mate, my club, what's happening? And then all the positives start happening. We get the takeover that comes through after we deal with the the privacy stuff. They give Bruce a bit too much time, if I'm being ultra harsh, but I think that they didn't want to, they didn't want to rock the boat too much new owners, and I don't think they had much choice. They wanted Emery, that was their number one choice.
Yeah,
that fell through, and then Eddie Howe was just kind of like that precipice of like, okay, they've interviewed Eddie Howe. He was very impressive. He was talking about how he had spent some time with Simeone, Klopp. He had actually spent some time with managers in his time off to improve. And then the appointment came through. And I think any Newcastle fan who's an honest Newcastle fan like I am, we're not going to sit here and pretend that we were like, oh my God, like Eddie Howe's going to change our football club. We're going to be top four. We're going to be blah, blah, blah. Of course not. I was like, he's a good appointment, but he's probably going to get us from where we are, like being this terrible, boring team that at bottom of the table all the time, to, respectable mid-table. Maybe one season we get Europa League. Maybe do that.
Yeah.
And then I just can't describe what he's done to our club. Just the improvement of again, Fabian Schär's a good point. Like now he's undroppable. He's that good. He's that good that I wouldn't even be surprised if Man City bidded for Fabian Schär, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think anyone else in football would be shocked if that ever happened, because he's turned that good. And he's not just done it to him, he's done it to, Jamal Lascelles. He had no career at Newcastle under Bruce. He was done. And now, I know we've had some defeats and stuff, but, in all, Jamal Lascelles shouldn't be starting for us. But he's just changed. Joe Linton, he was a joke. Yeah. We'll admit it. He was a joke to other fans. He was a joke to the Newcastle fans. And again, I was at the game. It was his first proper game in charge after he came back from COVID. who was it who got sent off? I can't even remember now. It was against Norwich. His name escapes me. We get a sending off, so we're down to 10 men. So he puts Joe in the middle, and I'm thinking, well, okay, what's going to happen here? Had the best game I've ever seen him play, ever. I was like, wow, how is Joe Linton that good? And then he went to Man United, and he dominated there. And then that idiot commentator was like, I never knew you were that good. And then Sean Longstaff stuck up for him. And and then we just we get a good finish, and then the next season, the one just before this one, it was non-stop. It was just win after win after win after win. We're in the top 4 for most of the season, and I'm in dreamland thinking, like, what are we doing? Like, some of the results we were getting, it was like, I can't believe this is the same Newcastle United that I've been watching. And no offense, with Eddie Howe at the helm, like, I'm not trying to be offensive to him, but no one expected this of Eddie Howe. And now, if you were talking about like the best managers in the league, he's in the conversation now to anybody.
Definitely. And one thing I did say is, I know that Newcastle fans, might not have thought it when Eddie Howe took over, but I had a conversation with Harry Redknapp and did a season preview with him. Not this season, of course, the season before that. And I said, Eddie Howe will get Newcastle 3rd in the league. And he turned around and he said, you're going mad. You're going mad. He even offered me a bet, which, to be honest, I wouldn't have won the bet. It's always probably best not to bet against Harry Redknapp. Knows stuff. But, I think it was £1,000, I think, that we was talking about. But I didn't take him up on it. But I honestly thought that when he went in there and took over from Steve Bruce, in that short period of time, considering his first game, he actually had COVID. It was a 3-3 draw against Brentford, wasn't it?
Brentford, that's right, yeah.
And from that following game all the way through, his record was fantastic to pull Newcastle clear. I honestly thought, taking over at the Newcastle job, I thought it is a poison chalice. It's going to be resulting in Eddie is going to be with this big club, having to get Newcastle out of the Championship. That's my honest view. Yeah. But he pulled you well clear that season. I could see it happening. And I think, when you compare the two sides as well, and I'm going to throw it back to you in a second. You look at the sides, the players that we had when we were promoted and throughout the years on our journey up. The likes of Mark Pugh, signed from Hereford United.
Yeah.
Harry Arter, signed from Woking. Charlie Daniels, who was going around the houses and couldn't find anywhere really. Steve Cook, reject at Brighton. And he made a team of these players. And do you feel that, what has he done to make, because Joe Linton was one that I always picked out, that he was crap, and he turned him into a player, who we see today, who is completely different. What is it that he's actually doing to these players? Is he giving them confidence? Is he giving them, is it the different positions? What do you think in your mind has made Joe Linton that much better from where he was, which was, let's be honest, bottom of the barrel?
I mean, the thing is, there's so much wrong with the signing in its entirety. He was brought to the club as if he was a number 9 at Hoffenheim, when he never was. He was always on the left for Hoffenheim. Sometimes in the middle here and there, but Hoffenheim had him mainly on the wing, and he was quite powerful there. And I was shocked when we signed him, and then it was like the new number 9. I was like, sorry, I watched this guy play against Tottenham, literally in the Champions League, and he wasn't a striker. Like, okay, maybe maybe the club know better than I do, so I'll give the poor bloke a chance. You know, and I know highlight reels don't tell you everything, but I was thinking the more I've seen of like his best moments, none of them were up front. Like not one highlight in his highlight reel was from a position where he's like a number 9 or what, in behind or whatever. It was always from the left. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy's meant to be our new number 9. That comes with a certain weight off it. It's as if, it's the same for Man United or whatever. There's certain number of shirts that come with a bit more, a bit more scrutiny. If you're a number 7 at Man United, that comes with a big expectation. So being a number 9 for Newcastle comes with a big expectation.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was quite obvious quite quickly, from the first game, I was like, this guy's movement, he doesn't know how to be a striker. He just, and that's not being harsh. It's like he looks lost. He's not on the end of balls. When he does get a chance, it goes off his knee or his left. It doesn't. He doesn't have that. That confidence of a striker who can get it in. He didn't look fit under Bruce, and then we'll come to that. And then obviously when Eddie comes in, one of the main things I noticed was, and everyone might have seen this, if you look at any picture of Joe back under Bruce, he's this gangly, skinny little thing. He's not a big muscular. If you look at him now, he's a tank. He's a flipping, he's an absolute monster. And that's a big thing, that Bruce was only training the lads twice a week. That's it. Because Bruce wasn't traveling. He still lived in Birmingham or wherever it was. He still lived there, and he was traveling down for the 2 days of training, then traveling back and then giving the lads days off. And that was his training regime. 2 days, 1 day if he wanted to do the gym. If he didn't want to, you didn't get in trouble. That's why St. Maximum never got fined, because I like Maxi, but he got away with murder when he was at the club. He went to Paris on days he was meant to be training. He went on holiday when many team talks and stuff. Like, there's stuff that Maxi got away with Bruce, because Bruce knew that he's his best player at the time and just thought, well, I can't let him get away with it. And Eddie came in and he said that, he's professional, so he said it in a nice way, but he said that the biggest thing he did was intensify training. Yeah. And we started to see that benefit of like I said, like these players like bulking up and being more strong and being more, being fit, because again, like when we were playing COVID football, we were blowing at 70 minutes. We were done. We were out. We were, and when players aren't training that, I know people think like, oh, maybe they trained less. They maybe, might be more ready. You ask any professional footballer, they would rather do more training so they're ready for the match.
Yeah.
So that, and I think that's what happened, that Eddie looked at where they're better to be played. And then, like I said, I think it was just, and Eddie admitted himself, blind bad luck from a sending off at Norwich. It was needs must. So he's like, well, Joe's powerful. I'll put him in that, battering ram sort of position in the middle and just kind of see what happens. And it just showed that that's where he was, where his strength was. And then since that game, if Eddie can get him in that same position, that's where he puts him every time. When we played, Dortmund the other night, that's where Joe was, because Eddie knows that he can try and trust him there. So since that Norwich game way back in his first season, it just proved that he wasn't being played right. He wasn't fit. He wasn't strong enough to be a midfielder at the time. And then from some bad luck and some stupid play, Eddie himself said, I got lucky. I didn't know that he could play there. He just put him there thinking, well, I think he'll do me a job, but we'll just try and get away with it because it's not, no offense to Norwich, but he was thinking it's Norwich. So let's, we'll get away with it for this game. And then he did it again against Man United. And again, like he had one of his best games ever against Man United. Man United didn't know what hit him that game. And he's just grown strength to strength. And he's not, he's gone from a laughing stock to, if I'm looking at most of my friends' fantasy football league, all of my mates were like, Paul, I've put Joe Linton in my team, mate, because he's getting me, he's getting me points, So, and it's nice, it's great to see. And there's loads of players. There's, Jacob Murphy, another one. He was done and dusted with us. He was another one going out the door. And again, he's just, obviously sadly got an injury, but he's another player that's just come, out of nowhere. Emil craft again. We bought this poor bloke, and we were like, well, he's awful. We don't want, we don't like him. And he would, again, when he was fit last season, he's undroppable. He was so good, and it was like, where's this come from? So, like I said, Eddie Howe has just proven himself to be a very good man manager in particular. And tactically, there's some things I could say that I get annoyed with as a fan, but we're all safer managers, when we get
exactly.
It's one of those things that, we all see things from hindsight, but there's small things that I could pick holes in. But 9 times out of 10, what Eddie does, it works. The press is what impresses me the most. Like the fitness in the players to do that press. Also, if I'm being ultra negative, I feel that a lot of our injury situation might be caused by the fact we're so intense, and I do worry that may have caused some of the injuries we've had. Because we've got pretty much a whole 11 on in the hospital at the moment.
Yeah.
And I do wonder whether a bit like Klopp, that when Klopp was doing that, that really, it was amazing to watch. But again, a lot of Liverpool fans were like, why are we getting so many injuries? Is it because that the play's so intense? It's so, it's so forward thinking, and you can only get away with that for so long. That's why we bought people like Harvey Barnes and stuff. And his was more of an unfortunate. It had nothing to do with that. It was an unfortunate injury with him. But this is why you have bought these players to bring speed and intensity. I mean, look at Anthony Gordon. When we bought him for 40 million, we were being laughed at. Other clubs, even Everton fans were like, we've mugged you there, mate. I tell you now, that's a snip at 40 million. We should have paid 60 because he's that good. He is unbelievable.
I was surprised actually when you signed Gordon, because I didn't rate him at Everton. And I think, just going back, it was. There was 2 games that we played against Everton just before the World Cup. And in both of those games, Everton were poor. Gordon, I believe, played in one of them and was poor. So I was surprised. But Eddie has got this habit of turning people around. He's got this habit of detecting when somebody's got a quality. What's interesting, though, this season is Eddie in Europe and how he's handling, the fixture congestion and how he's going to handle that moving forwards. Because, like you say, there's a lot of injuries and a lot of concerns now. And in my mind, this isn't a bad time to play Newcastle. Albeit, I'm not particularly happy with our manager as it stands at the moment. But let's have a look at the European, tour as it was, because against PSG, I watched that game. That was excellent, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit, in the last 2 games, hasn't it?
I thought we were very lucky at AC Milan. I thought we were very lucky in that game. Milan, if Milan had their shooting boots on, we'd probably lose that game about 4 or 5-0. If I'm being ultra honest, yes, we were good defensively, but that was it. Going forward, we were awful. But you can put that down to nerves and the first time the lads have been there. So not being ultra critical, but I wasn't too. We did the review on John's channel after the game, and I got a bit of flack for being a bit negative, but I was just like, well, I'm not trying to be negative, but we didn't have a shot on target. And it's just like, these opportunities don't come around often. And then your next game, yes, it's at St. James's, but I was thinking, our next game's PSG. That's hard. That's tough. They're no mugs, but, but again, we were very fortunate that there's things that went in our favour in that match. PSG didn't come to us ready. No way. They were, I don't know what was up with them. They were on another planet, the way they played us. They were very naive tactically. And Mbappe, I've never seen him less bothered in my life. He could not have wanted to be he wanted to be anywhere else but in Newcastle that night. He was terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's, PSG have had their own problems with him with contracts and stuff. So I don't know whether that's been, a headache with that. And again, PSG have been quite fortunate in this group because they've been pretty poor, and they got beat by AC Milan the other night. And I was not expecting that. I thought PSG were going to walk them.
Yeah.
So they've not been great, but yeah, it was an incredible. I mean, I was there, and it's still like one of the best atmospheres I've ever been at. It was just, when that fourth goal went in, I didn't know what planet I was on. I was like, sorry, what are we doing? But then this is the thing that, then Dortmund are coming to Newcastle, coming to St James's, and I think, I'm honest as a fan, and I felt some of the fans kind of got lost with that result, and they were like, mate, stop being, because I was saying like, Dortmund could come and do a job on us because they're a very good side, and some fans were saying, don't be negative, Paul. You're always negative. Like we thrash PSG, we're going to thrash these lot, and it's like, yeah, but Dortmund are going to come with a bit more about them. They need a win. Let's not treat them as mugs. And I felt we were unlucky at St James's a little bit. We hit the bar, hit the post. I think a fair result of that game would have been 1-1. I think even Dortmund would probably hold their hands up and say the same. And then the other night, injuries were tough. It was a very, the team we put out was very haphazard. I'm not going to joke. We had Lewis, I love Lewis Hall as a signing, but Lewis Hall was starting. Livramento was starting in a position he doesn't normally play. Trippier's playing left back, right back, here and there and everywhere. No offense to Callum Wilson, but we've got Wilson up front against Borussia Dortmund. No offense to Wilson. I love Wilson. That needs to be Isaac. He's the pacey guy we need, but he's not going to be back until we come back after the international break. So we went with a very kind of patched together team. And as proud as the guys that are as proud, I mean, I thought the first goal was very fortunate. It wasn't a throw in, but I'll trigger Arsenal fans with saying the ball was in, but it was in. Willock didn't put the ball out, and the ref has blown for some. I don't know why the ref's blown there, because it's not even, when you look at the picture, it's not even like close. It's like this far out, so it was never a throw in, and then we never get there. We just, Joe hits it and it bounces off, Lewis Hall. If it bounces on the left, he clears it, but it bounces like right on his heel, which goes straight to the guy, I can't remember his name now, but straight to the Dortmund player. That is a good finish. So you're 1-0 down, and then I thought second half we deserved a goal. Joe should be scoring that header. I will see that in my nightmares for the next couple of weeks. And then Kieran Trippier, I love him normally, but terrible. And I mean this, sorry, Trips. We love you, but one of the worst free kicks you'll see on a football field. Literally passed it straight to Dortmund. And what do? We've got all 11 players up because we're trying to win. I think it's like 88th minute or whatever it was when they got the second. Really naughty stuff from us. We're trying too hard. Trippier, dire ball, and then 2-0 because we've got no one back. Livramento, poor bloke, he's between two players thinking, do I go with you? Do I go with you? And he kind of gets caught in the middle. Pope, if I'm being ultra harsh, maybe could be doing better, but again, that was probably more of a 1-0 game, if I'm being honest. But we've just been caught out, and I think that the best we can do now in Europe is probably finish third. If we get a draw, or if PSG don't turn up, because that can happen. PSG might come in with the same cockiness because they're at home, and I hope they do, because we could potentially win that. I know how that sounds, but we could. And I feel confident with AC Milan at home. So if we get a draw and win the last game, I think we confirm third place. I don't think we're going to get through to the group stages now, sadly. I think we needed to win at least one of the Dortmund games to get through. Obviously, who knows, but I'll be proud of the lads getting points on the board, because people were saying we weren't going to get any. We were getting mocked. When we got out group, people were like, you're going to get no points, mate. So the fact we've already got 4, and Man United have got 3 points in a terrible, I'm sorry, them and Bayern Munich should be walking that, and they're not. So I'm happy that we haven't been the embarrassment of Champions League. It's been Man United. So thank you, Man United, for continuing your weird run of bizarre form, which I think might lead to a management change in this period of 2 weeks. But yeah, I just think that, I think because it's our first time, we're unfortunate with injuries, and I think Eddie at times, no offense to him, but he has shown some lack of, experience, which is going to be obvious because it's his first time. You know, I fully feel if we have a full 11 and a better bench next year, if we are in the Champions League next year, if we are, I feel we'll probably do a bit better.
I think you can still get through. Think you can still get through, but we'll have to see how it all pans out.
We're relying on other results now.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? But hopefully, fingers crossed for Eddie, you know, and Newcastle fans. I'd love to see you go through into those knockout stages, and you never know. It was always going to be a tough group, that one. Always going to be a tough group.
Like I said, yeah. You know, when we got the group drawn, like I said, you know, all of our lovely number one fans, like the Arsenal fans and the Liverpool fans, who they love us as a club. They can't say enough nice things about us Liverpool and Arsenal fans at the moment. I haven't had any abuse off them, you know. But they're all like, enjoy your 0 points, enjoy your 6-0 thrashing from PSG. So the thing I'm happy with is that we haven't. The thing is, I can proudly say we haven't embarrassed ourselves in any of the games.
No.
So that's the biggest thing for me, that, you know, a patched up team really should have lost 1-0 against Dortmund away, which again is not the worst result on the planet. And also 2-0, I guess, because Dortmund are a better side than some people give them credit for. You know, so if we, you know, even if we come fourth in that group and we get some point, you know, we still win at AC Milan at St James's, I'd still be proud of the lads for putting in a shift, because again, it wasn't like we've been smacked 10-0 or 9-0 and, you know, that people are like, cool, Newcastle shouldn't have been in here. You know, we're giving a good account of ourselves. I just feel that if we had our best 11 out, we would have, you know, we probably would have been through by now. But it is what it is. What can you do about injuries? It's just part and parcel of the game.
Exactly. Well, you do have in Newcastle a lot of AFC Bournemouth. And Callum Wilson, Matt Ritchie, Eddie Howe, you know, the centre of attention, Tyndall, and of course the coaching staff as well.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the fourth time, I should say, they're coming up against their former team. But this is the first time they're coming up against somebody who maybe they didn't really know, or one of them knew at any point, you know. And Gary O'Neill was very, very respectful of Eddie, and Eddie was very respectful of Gary. But Iraola is a completely different kettle of fish. And I believe that Eddie has also looked at Iraola, or the other way round, at some point. I can only imagine that Iraola is going to play the style that we've gone with pretty much all season, which is pass, and hasn't worked. That's going to play straight into Eddie's hands, isn't it? And is it going to be a case that he's going to go hammer and tong all out, you know, for Bournemouth, considering his history?
I mean, that's the thing, because anyone that knows Newcastle, the tactic that works against us the best is the low block. We hate the low block. We we are so bad at breaking down the low block. Mm-hmm. We've been terrible for that since Alan Pardew days. That will tell you how bad we are at it. But, you know, that's why we brought in players like Gordon and Barnes to try and help with that low block problem. So, you know, Bournemouth's best tactic for me, if they were going to try, would be to do that, because it can frustrate us. And again, with the lack of, you know, my biggest worry is we're going to have a lack of a forward on Saturday, because Wilson is less than 50-50. By the sounds of it, probably not going to play. So it's probably going to be Anthony Gordon up front. So, you know, I love Anthony Gordon, but no, you know, he's not a number 9. So it's one of those things that does worry me about how much power we're going to have going forward, realistically.
Yeah.
So that does worry me. So I feel that with that knowledge, then a block would be really good, because in my opinion, if you do that against, no real striker, then you are going to keep us out quite well.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is if you are too forward, our biggest plus is counter-attack. Villa found that out. Villa, Emery, I don't know why he didn't do his homework, because he kept trying to attack us. He put that line so high against our players, and that's why it could have been, 5-1. It could have been 8, because they were leaving so much gaps in behind Villa, and they've been caught out a few times, not just by us as well this season. Like, Villa have been caught out a lot because of that tactic, and I know a lot of their fans get frustrated with Emery because of that. So if Bournemouth, if the manager's going to be, just stick to his guns and try and stick to that, his biggest issue with us is going to be that when we get the ball back, we're going to have Gordon running at you, Willock running at you, Miggy, who's absolutely rapid, Joe Linton, who's rapid. We've got really quick players who can hurt you. Obviously Bruno's suspended, so that's a positive, because that's a lack of creativity that we've lost our anchor in midfield, which is a shame. That's going to be a big loss for us, because Bruno's one of those players where he's he's not always like the number one player on the pitch, but he quietly does his job. He anchors the ball and kind of just does these amazing little things. So we're going to struggle without Bruno for definite. That's another plus in Bournemouth's column, that Bruno's not going to be able to come in the game. So, our midfield is going to be, again, it's probably going to be Sean, who's more defensively minded. I'm assuming he's going to bring Willock in for that creativity, and then maybe, Joe Linton to try and maybe put him forward a bit more. But we are going to lose that, that midfield battle is going to be a bit more tasty, because Bruno's that dictator for us. So we're very short. We are very short in that period. We're short at the back as well. We've got the back four is fixed together by masking tape at the moment. We've got potentially, I don't know what's going to happen with Kieran Trippier, because he looked dead on his feet against Dortmund. He didn't look very good, and I think that's due to tiredness. He's just been called up for England. I bet Eddie Howe's not happy about that. I would have preferred Trippier to have some time off. So I don't know whether, again, I'm guessing, but my opinion is that we probably bench Trippier. I think that Livramento will probably start ahead of him, and Hall will start on the left, with Lascelles and Shah in the middle. And I think that probably will be our back four. So, and that's, when you do make changes in the back four, as anyone knows, that's when you're vulnerable. So, with that, and then midfield not being as strong, and then our forward line being not as strong, it's a game that I'm worried about, because, we need, we don't want to lose any, we want to be, in that top 4, top 5, and, other teams are going to get results. So we need to, we need to really win. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough game. I respect Bournemouth a lot, and I always love going to the ground, because the fans are always brilliant. The last time I was there, they were all just, all the fans were asking me about how we're getting on with Eddie and wishing us well. And it's, that's brilliant. That's what, it's real football fans. You're not the Arsenal lot, I tell you. I've never seen so many toys at the pram last week. My goodness.
Oh, if we had the success that they'd had, we'd be very, very happy. But we've been, to be honest, it's a great story, going down to League Two, being -17. Eddie Howe takes on the job, guides us all the way up to the Premier League. It does go to Burnley and comes back at one point as well. But looking at this game, I think that Gary O'Neill, when we come up against you last season, and where I was going really with this is that I think he, got it spot on.
Yeah.
I think he got it spot on. Where Iraola, of course, it's quite interesting. Mikel Arteta, of course, a Basque manager, recently been beaten by yourselves, and of course, Unai Emery, Basque manager. And in fact, there's quite an interesting interview, if any Newcastle fans want to watch it on here. It's with a guy called Mikel Ixtari. And he was actually the Basque national team manager. And they excel in that area of the world, in that area of Spain, of pass, press high. But in my honest opinion, you can't play that against Eddie Howe, because what Unai Emery experienced and what Arteta's experienced. And I don't think you can play it, at our level. Aston Villa and Arsenal are a lot better than we are, man to man, or, have got more experience. I think we're in real trouble, because I think you come up against teams like Arsenal. Man City play that, but Man City are on a whole different scale.
But what's funny about that is that Pep Guardiola, when we played him early season, Pep actually said pre-interview he's literally changed his tactics because it's Newcastle. I didn't say that. Pep Guardiola said that. So he was like, I've gone more defensive because if I attack them, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
So that showed, and I was like, wow, Pep really does respect us. Like that tells you everything. When Pep Guardiola is saying to his team, like, do not over attack Newcastle because we're done. And that amazed me, because when we played them at the Etihad, Man City fans would have said the same, that they probably haven't seen their team over defensive like all the time. But that's what they did for a lot of the game. They just kind of held their ground, because Pep knew that if he over attacks, that's our strength. So if Pep Guardiola knows to change his tactics, that just tells you everything, really.
Iraola needs to change it up. We can't play in this Basque way. And it was interesting speaking to Mikel, because, I can see how it can work in Spain, but it's a completely different style. And, that's why Eddie was so successful with ourselves when we were promoted to the Premier League in that first season. Nobody expected anything from us. Is that we were counter-attacking, we were fast. We had players like Iraola who could make things happen. Mark Pugh, that man that we signed from Hereford United for peanuts, basically. Him on those dribbling runs on the left-hand side. It was just a joy to watch. It's just a joy to watch, and that football is so exciting. And I'm kind of jealous that you guys have got it. And I think, what do you think the owners, because the Saudi Consortium, I don't criticize them at all, because I think, at the end of the day, they've done what Man City have done what other clubs have done what Chelsea have done. And I think, Amanda seems a very, very nice, approachable person as well, from when you hear her speak. But what is the next step on the plan? Do you think that Eddie has got a timescale of when they want to be competing for the title?
Yeah, I think last season shocked them, and they even said themselves that, anyone who's watched the Amazon documentary that came out, even our owners were like, we were not expected to be in Champions League in the second season. Of course we're not. We've finished decent in his first season. They were expecting, at best, they were like, hey, if we get Europa League, we'll be chuffed. That'd be a great season for Newcastle. And then it was just strength to strength, and then the team start believing. So it's almost like we've, if we did have a 5-year plan, we've broken 2 of the years, because we've gotten to where we probably wanted to be in year 4. So I think that's come with certain pressure, not from the owners, but the media in particular more. I've noticed the level of scrutiny on us is very much different now we're in the Champions League. If we lose a game, there's much more press. There's much more, like Talk Sport, like make us a whole hour of their programming, because they know that it's going to get, calls and listens and whatever. So, and that comes with that, when you have that success. So, our owners are they are very happy. They're very happy with what's happening. If we can get anywhere near that this season, again, that's going to be even more success. I think in their head, because we haven't yes, we've spent money. We have. We're not going to pretend we haven't. But we haven't spent money in the way that people thought we were going to. There was the jokes when we got taken over. All the jokes were being thrown at us. Oh, now it's going to be Neymar and then Mbappe United, and they're going to buy this player and blah blah blah. And it's just like, FFP exists now, so we can't just do that. But also, when they hired Eddie Howe, I knew that he's not a manager that's going to do that. He's brought in players who he fit. When he was at Bournemouth, he's bringing in players that he thinks he can develop, who he thinks can, become a good player one day. Not these big names. And I'm thinking well, really, are we going to become this club that just buys mercenaries? Is that really our future? Because me as a purist fan, I'd rather be in the Championship. I'm not being funny here. I know we would be winning leagues and whatever, but if they're not playing for my club, they don't really care about Newcastle. I lose a bit of that fandom because I love when players love my club.
Yeah.
I don't think, any Man City fan worth their salt will tell you that they weren't fans of Man City when, they were winning titles, but, you have got people in there who they don't love Man City. They love the money, not being funny. They were there for the money. They're not there because they had some love of Man City. Erling Haaland, that's a genius move. His dad played for Man City. There's a clear synergy there that that works. And then you've got a player who genuinely wants to be there. So that's fine. I've got no issue with that. And that's what I hope for our future, that I don't want to turn into that club where, if we're going to get big, we've got Adidas now, we've got, all these, our sleeves full of sponsors now. So we're trying to get more money, of course, but I'd be sad if we turn into some sort of generic sort of, this big player will just pay this big money. We'll come to Newcastle, we'll win a couple of leagues with this guy. And then because he's bored of us, he'll bugger off to Barcelona or Real Madrid. I'd rather be struggling than have that, because for me, that's not very nice as a fan. I think it just makes you a bit of a soulless club. And then again, I'm not trying to, Man City fan. No, again, pure Man City fans will agree with me here, because I've been to the Etihad many times. It's a bad ground. It's a bad ground for fans. Mm-hmm. I've seen goals go in, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but I've seen it where they've gone 1-0 up and they've just got, it literally gets a small clap because they're so used to winning. They're so used to it that joy has kind of left them. And I'd be gutted if that's what we turn into. Of course, the realist inside of me, Saudi Arabia have not bought us to have us come fourth.
No,
they want to win, and that's my only nervousness. That if Eddie has a bad season, let's say one season, I do worry that they can be ruthless. And that, if they think that there's a better manager out there, as much as I would not like that, they might be like, look, we want to be winning. And no offense to you, Eddie, you've done a good job, but this manager's probably going to win us the title. So thanks for playing, but we're gonna get this guy. And it's like, I don't want to turn into that club where we just buy everything, and then we do become what the joke is.
Yeah.
But sadly, I have to be real. We are probably going to end up that way. I hate to say it, but we probably will. 1 year. I'm not saying like soon, but 10 years, 15 years down the road. It's, you know what I mean? If they want us up the top, which they do, our big owner keeps saying that he wants us to win the league and win Champions Leagues. And, if you want to be consistent doing that, no offense, I love Eddie Howe. Of course I love him, but is our manager in 15 years' time going to be Eddie Howe? Probably not.
No.
It's sad to say that, but I'm just being honest.
Hopefully he'll be back here, but I think, you probably have bigger fish to fry. But hold the thought about the owners, actually, because we'll come back to that. But let's look at this weekend's game. How do you think this is going to go?
I mean, yeah, like I said, it's going to be a hapdash Newcastle United. I can promise you. You're going to see our bench and think, "Who the hell's that?" Because we're going to have people like. I mean, yeah, you might have heard of some of these, may not have, but we're going to have the likes of Lewis Smiley on the bench. We're going to have Parkinson on the bench from our youth squad. We're not going to have we're not going to have much options off the bench. We're probably going to have 3 keepers on the bench again, like we did last time when we played Dortmund. We had 3 keepers on the bench because that's just where we are with injuries. So that 11 that starts is probably going to be close to the 11 that finishes the game. So Eddie won't. What I like about Eddie, he won't change his style. So we won't be any different. It will be be the 4-3-3. It'll be the high press. It'll be trying to cause trouble. Be trying to score goals. It will be it will be endeavour there. Like I said, my only worry is that the team, as I think it will be, my only worry is that we looked a bit toothless against Dortmund because of that. And I think again, I think we all just look a bit light up front because we don't have the same firepower. If we had Isaac or something, or even Wilson half fit, I'd rather that. But yeah, I don't think, if we won, I know lads on the other channel were a bit more, a bit more cocky and a bit more, oh, we're going to win 4-1 and 5-1. I really don't think so. I think if we win, it will be a tight 1-0, in my opinion, because I just don't see us with that lineup. I don't see us scoring many goals. And I think if Bournemouth are smart, they do the low block and try and keep us out, because if they do that, that's where you guys get a 0-0 or even you get a scrappy goal or whatever, and you hold out because we haven't got the firepower. Do you know what I mean? So that for me is, I think if either team wins, I think it will be like a 1-0 or a draw. I just don't see it being like 4-5-0 to Newcastle and it being like an easy day out, which some of our fans are thinking this is going to be. I just don't. I always get called negative, but I feel I'm just realistic. If we had everyone playing, I might be different. If we had Botman, back in the 4, and if we had Bruno playing, and we had Isaac up front, and we had Barnes and all these people, then maybe I might be like, well, hey, you guys are in for a bit of a game, and if we get going, we might win 4 or 5. But with what we've got, like I said in the other podcast, I'd be very happy to get a scrappy 1-0 without any injuries, for God's sake, and just leave. Just get in, get the job done, and just get on the bus as quickly as possible and start healing up, because that's what we need. But I'd be chuffed at that. I mean, I don't care. I don't want us to play brilliantly, and then get injuries. I'd rather us play really rubbish, get an awful goal, and just run with it. Because honestly, I'd take that right now, because the biggest thing I don't want is any more injuries, because you're going to see yourselves, we are hurting. When you see that bench, you're going to be like, who the hell? I've never heard of that player. If you're not a diehard Newcastle fan, you're going to be like, who the hell is Alex Murphy? Who is that?
I think we're going to make it difficult for Eddie.
Yes.
Mainly because there's still some of the old players there. There's still some of the old guard there. There's players that know him, like Lloyd Kelly, Solanke, Billin. They are becoming few and far between, unfortunately, now. But, those sort of players will probably play up for the Eddie. And I don't think we'll win. I think we'll probably get beat, but I think it'll be 2-1. It will be tight and it will be close. I think we'll get a goal, but still, I've got no faith in Iraola, going with this low block. I think he'll go with the same plan that Unai Emery and Arteta failed with.
Yeah.
And it's going to play straight into Eddie's hands. And really, he's going to have to look at himself. But actually, before we go as well, of course, you was talking there about the owners. How much of a difference is it from Mike Ashley?
I mean, I don't. This is the thing. I don't know how. Obviously, because Bournemouth fans might not follow every bit of thing that Mike Ashley did with Newcastle. There's probably things that from his tenure under us, but there's so many things that just strange decisions that as fans you're just thinking, I don't even understand what you're trying to get out of this.
Yeah.
He comes in with all of these promises. The first season he's drinking beer, he's got the Newcastle top on, he's trying to be like big mate, and he's doing like free pies. I remember that it was like the Swansea game. We had a game against Swansea at St James's, and it was like, Mike Ashley, it's a pie on me and all this. And it's just like, what is this guy? Okay, like, is this guy just trying to like butter us up or whatever? And then, like, we heard rumours after 1 year that he's trying to get rid of us. So after 1 year, we were like, oh, there's a rumour that he's trying to sell Newcastle. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. He's only just come here. Like, what? Okay. And then, like, then the manager stuff, Chris Hughton just doing that amazing job with the guys in the Championship. And then he comes up and then does a good job. He was doing a good job in the Premier League. I remember, I'll never forget it. We got a really good 1-1 with Man United when they were a better team at Old Trafford. Yeah. And our record at Old Trafford before was terribly awful. Like, I think we had won once since the 90s or something stupid. Like, our record was awful. And Kabay scored this amazing. It was just unbelievable. That was the next season, sorry. But we got the 1-1 under Chris Hughton, and he sacked him. He literally sacked him after a 1-1 at Old Trafford. I remember going to work and my friend said to me, like, Chris Hughton's been sacked. And I was like, yeah. Like, and he's like, no, seriously. He's been, look it up. And I was like, no, I'm not falling for that. And then he was like, no, Paul. No, I looked it up and I was like, what? He's been sacked. What? And then it's like, oh, when Alan Partridge's coming in.
What a mate, isn't it?
Is he? And it's just like, and then like, we'll be here all day, sorry, but then you got things like the Joe Kinnear appointment. You've got Dennis Wiser's head of football who gets in footballers like Cisco because he looked at him on YouTube and thought he looked good. And it's just like he didn't have a clue what he was doing, and he has to bin off Dennis Wise because he's no good. Then he's like scrambling around for managers and just not knowing what to do, and then changing St James's Park to sportsdirect.com arena. And then of all people to help us out, it's Wonga that come in as our shirt sponsor that actually said, you know what, it shouldn't be that, it should be St James's Park. So we're going to change it back to St James's Park. So it's only thanks to Wonga that we went back to St James's Park. Then we have got things like Gutierrez, who develops cancer and gets a text message firing from the club because he had cancer. Disgusting. That's one of the worst things that happened under Ashley. All the other things he was guilty of, that was one of the things that really annoyed us as a club, as a fan base. But what I love about Gutierrez, he never held it against the fans. He loved Newcastle still. And I love that connection. When he was in remission, he came back to St James's and just said, he put on his Twitter, like he just got such a good reception. And he still tweets about us to this day. So it's lovely that he knows the fan, it wasn't the fans. But, that's abhorrent. Like, having cancer and then getting a text message to say, oh, by the way, because you've got this illness, you're not coming for the club, And then the whole, like, I don't know how many people know this story, but the Man City ownership could have been us. I don't know how many people know this story. So they came to see us for a meeting, and Mike Ashley was drunk at the meeting. He was drunk, and he offended them. And they didn't buy our club; they bought Man City. Now you could say this: that I'm saying big if, but if that meeting goes well and they buy us, we are now where Man City are. Probably, we get that takeover. We, blah blah blah. But that happened under Mike Ashley, and then the whole situation with Rafa Benitez and the whole stupidness around that. Like, yes, okay, he went out of his way to buy him, but Rafa approached him again. Mike Ashley tried to spin it, but Rafa approached Mike Ashley.
Mm.
And Mike Ashley tried to spin it that he was like, oh, well, I got Rafa for you. It's like, no. Rafa approached you and said, hey, do you want me to come and manage the club? Because I think it's a great fan base. So, and again, we'll be here till next Christmas, but there's just so many small things. And then, the stuff with Sports Direct that affected us with, when he got in trouble with the zero contract stuff.
Yeah.
He's forcing pregnant women to give birth in his warehouses because he's not following, employment law. Like I said, Mike, the difference is just so crazy. You get that, and then you get, look, I know, look, I get it. We are owned by a state. We are. Like, I know that technically we're not. We're owned by PAIF. I get it. But yes, if you want to be technical, we are owned by a state. So we're Man City. So we'll bin that. Yes. And I know the other thing I do know as well is that, and I don't agree with it, we're Western, so we see things differently. Of course, the human rights things are horrible. They are. They're not what we want. They're not what should happen. Women have rights. I'm a teacher in my real job, and I teach about women's rights. And of course, they need to modernize and come to our thinking about that. A lot of things. But at the end of the day, we didn't pick our owners. The fans. And I do get a bit bored of other fans moaning at us or telling me off as a fan for even going to games or supporting the club because we're owned by a certain thing. And it's just like, well, I can't help who owns my club. No one was feeling sorry for us when Mike Ashley was doing it.
They'd be delighted to have Saudi owners. Let's be honest. You pick any team. Pick Man United, for example. So, who I'm sure a lot of Man United fans moan about, this situation. They would love to have Saudi owners. They wanted to go with Qatari owners, but it didn't happen.
Not to name anyone in particular, but as a particular channel, which I'm sure you all know already, run by a very, very famous YouTuber who, when we got taken over, was very much like, look at Newcastle, like, they're rubbish, don't do that. And then when Sheik, whatever his name was coming from Man United, he was singing about oiling him up and blah, 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 that he knows he's a hypocrite, etc., etc. And then when it didn't go through, he was throwing his toys at the pram, and it's just, every club would love to have it. We struck the lottery, but the thing is that even though we're still having to do it as we're having to go around it. We can't just go out tomorrow, in January and buy big play. We can't. We are restricted. So like I said, we have bought players, but they've been sensible buys. Like, yes, we have. In some instances, you could argue we've overpaid at times. But then when they're playing now, like people are saying that we've overpaid for Anthony Gordon, for example. But in my opinion, when we first signed him, I would agree. I thought, 40 million, that's quite a lot for him. He's got quite a lot to prove that he's worth that money. But look at him this season. He's earned that and more. like, he's worth more than if someone wanted to buy him, he'd be going for 60, 70 now if he's playing like he is. We paid 68 or something in that region for Isaac out of absolute nowhere. Like, that came out of nowhere. We've paid about Livramento was about 40, I think, in the end with all of the add-ons. So, and again, looking at his last 6 or 7 performances, that looks like good money invested because he is some player. I tell you what, to be man of the match against Man City, Man United, and Arsenal, and probably Dortmund, that's some going from a lad who's only in his 20s. I'm very happy we've got him long term because he's going to be some player. And when Southgate finally gets the bin, he'll be playing for England all the time. He'll be a constant because he's that good. He is unbelievable. Again, I'm a bit worried that he's that good that we're still in that moment at the moment that people at Man City could still take our players. That's my only worry, that we're still not there yet, and Man City do still have that pull of like, hey, come to us.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, you can go from strength to strength. I'm sure you will under Sir Eddie Howe, God, the chosen one. Hopefully, you can give him to us back at some point, but I'm sure you're enjoying him at the moment.
Mate, I can't. It's just, it's just nice to be like, it's just nice to support the club in like in a positive light, because it's been so many years of like, negativity, in the fan base as well. Like, I'll never forget going to St James's Park. We beat, I think it was Fulham in the Championship season when we had Rafa, and we were obviously still under Mike Ashley, and I think we won like 3-0 or 4-0, whatever it was. And Shelby scored this amazing, like unbelievable, like great free kick in the top corner. And of course, I celebrated. I was like, "Get in, get in!" The guy next to me, I'll never forget this. The guy next to me went, "Sit down. You're cheering for Mike Ashley." It's like, sorry, what? Well, I'm not allowed to celebrate it. We've scored a great goal, and we've just, we thrashed our biggest rival for the top spot at the time. What? Like, that's what we were. We were a fan base. Well, we weren't a fan base. We weren't together. We were, when I bought the new shirt again, like I remember people throwing beer on me when I came out of Sports Direct in town. In Newcastle, this is, and people were throwing beer at me because I bought a new top. Because you're supporting Ashley, like, it's like, well, no, I'm supporting my club. Like, he gets the profits. He stays because of that. Or when I had my, I've still got my season ticket now from when I was, I'm 36 now. I've had a season ticket since I've been 18. I've bought one every year. And when I was buying season tickets under Ashley again, I was getting wrong for that, because people are like, "Oh, you're supporting his regime. He's staying because of fans like you." And it's like, I'm not being funny. I don't think Mike Ashley cares if I go or not. I just don't think he does. I don't say that. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if Paul doesn't go to Newcastle. He's not going, "Right, guys, I'm leaving Newcastle because Paul didn't go." It's just, that mean,
Well, you got such a big following, such a good following, you fill that stadium anyway. But Paul, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today on Up the Cherries and All Departments. Please, everybody do go and join John Sinclair TV, where Paul is a regular as well, and do watch our conversation on there as well. It was good fun, actually. Good fun. But yeah, pleasure as always, and no doubt we'll speak later on in the season. And all the very, very best to you.
Yeah, all the best all the best for Bournemouth, apart from Saturday. But all the best. I hope you guys stay up, because, like I said, I have a lot of time for Bournemouth as a city, as a fan base. For respect, when it comes to St James's, they're always brilliant. They never stop singing, those fans. Bless them. So, and they're always respectful. So, I've got all the time in the world for your club, and we have the Eddie Howe connection. We have the, everything connection, Callum Wilson connection. It's the Matt Ritchie derby on Saturday.
Matt Ritchie derby. Matt Ritchie, what a legend. What a legend. Paul, absolute pleasure, and thank you so much again.
No worries, mate. All the best.
Cheers, mate. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember to hit the like, subscribe, bell button. Do leave your comments. Do leave your match predictions as well below. And do make sure that you follow this channel, both on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, you name it. But until the next one, Up the Cherries, we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us.